Okay, let's look at the next part of this gross neuroanatomy. What we're looking at now is the question of how does the brain grow. And this graphic is a very simple illustration of the gradual complexifying of the brain. Now that's just an odd sort of word, but essentially what the brain is doing as it grows through gestation. Here we have a lovely example. Is this infant's brain growth shows the gradual folding in of the brain tissue. As it becomes more complicated, it doesn't just grow bigger, but it grows more complex as it develops. There are many more folds as the baby develops from 20 to 35 to 40 years. Now there are sensitive periods in the early brain development of a child, and the different agenda for the child as they grow becomes really quite interesting. And we can see there how the different agendas, so you can see probably emotional control is the pink. How that develops, it takes a lot longer to develop as the child progresses. Numbers ability is different again. That we have a high sensitivity in the preschool years and it stays high, but emotional control tends not to be as sensitive later on. It tends to be developed fairly early, whereas other things like numbers tend to be much later. So there's a bunch of things happen early and then decline. Habitual ways of responding tend to be established early. Emotional control is established early. Vision and hearing are also established early. Now when you think about it, all of those things are about survival. So the infant is able to do a whole lot of other things once you've got vision and hearing established and you've got emotional control established. And some habitual ways of responding. Once the infant learns those things, then other things can take place. So if you like, these are the building blocks. As the child then develops a capacity to develop symbolic ability, then they also develop language. Interesting, isn't it? That takes place around about the same time. Peer social skills and number development, all of which is about the gradual ability to then take on learning as the child develops. School time happens around about 5-ish, and then a lot of more sophisticated ability happens then.
So what's the yellow one? Is it language?
The yellow one is language. Yeah. And that sensitivity stays there for much longer. Interesting. Everyone okay with that? Just a rather clever graphic. But it shows the cerebellum down the base of the brain, just behind the brain stem, within your brain cavity, within the skull, of course, because the skull's purpose is to protect the brain, keep it safe. You've got the brain stem there. Tell me what the cerebellum is used for. What happens in the cerebellum? Fluid movement and balance. My ability to move fluidly. Ballerinas have very developed cerebellums. Balance. The ability to know where your body is in space. And to move fluidly, so that you are able to perform very beautiful functions. And simple things like the fluid movement of walking. The cerebellum helps us to do that. And to walk and do something else, to hold something, to reach for something, to sit, to stand in one movement, to maintain your balance as you do.
Does the cerebellum over time? Does it ever grow or go up?
Or decrease.
Yeah, or decrease.
Experience can cause it to become more sophisticated, and I'm not sure whether it grows in volume or not, but I think it might actually. There was a study done comparing ballerinas with normals of the same age, and the ballerinas had much more developed cerebellums. So I think developed in volume. But I would have to go back to confirm it, but that's my thought, my memory of it. That in fact, that experience affects it, which goes back to brain plasticity. What we do affects our brain. So what we practice affects our brain. If we practice language, we develop the language areas of our brain. If we don't practice our language, what happens to it? We lose the vocabulary, don't we? Those of you who have grown up in another country, do you find when you go back there that you have to really consciously remember the vocabulary?
Yeah, some of the words.
Yeah, some of the words.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Even some spellings.